Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Great.
And we are finding our seats over here. I think most people are back in. And again, we're blessed by having Lamech come to visit with us and to share his insights about Africa, which is clearly a really huge part of Alba Baker Fund's efforts, and also a huge part of our reputation, right? Not just in Africa, but globally and here in the US. And so learning more about our activities in Africa, more about what Lamech does, who does it with, the advantages and the disadvantages of the various just facilities and variations in geography and culture and language that Lamech has to deal with, day in and day out. It's a really good way for me personally to think about Alba Baker Fund's activities, because the same differences exist in the US, but not as massive scale, the differences. But if we can overcome the differences in a place as diverse as Africa is, we have no excuse here in the US, where we have one language and one generally common culture, and so we've got to make sure we put our best foot forward everywhere. And so grateful to have Lamech here putting our best foot forward in Africa. So why don't you take it away?
Thank you. Thank you so much. And yes, I was thinking about many things, but I was able to come up with the main one. And the very first one, which I would like the board to go with, is the board to know that there is a lot of tremendous impact on the continent by ABS. And we see this in how some of our students have become independent. They can now independently support themselves, and they're supporting their families and communities. We also see it in how our former students are progressing in Christian Science. Some have become practitioners on the continent. We have many of our former students who are now serving as Christian Science nurses. And we have many of our former students who have taken up roles in their own respective churches. Like yesterday, I was showing you one of our students who is now serving as a treasurer in our church, and he came in when he was just a very young boy. And but what is also interesting about the impact, it is not only impacting our students. We have seen a lot of progress, even within amongst our ICRs. The people whom we have picked to represent us, they seem to progress. I think because of that trust we put in them, it helps them to progress more. Some of them have gone ahead to become practitioners, some are now even teachers, yes, teachers. But they tend to put all the credit to our ABF. Then the second point I would like the board to take is I wanted the board to know that our program is so loved, not by only our students, but the entire community. They love ABF program and they protect it jealously. Yes, and yeah, we see it. For example, if I may share with you, we require when a student applies to ABF, we require them to provide us with a reference. And these references usually come from active church officials. And these officials, when they are making a reference, they don't just write, they invite the students and they interview the students. What do you want to do? What are you going to study? And where are you going to study? And because they want to be careful, they don't want to recommend somebody who doesn't really qualify. And to me, I see that as wanting to protect the program. And we also see it in cases where just ordinary members give us, they play the role of whistleblowing if there's something wrong happening, members or just ordinary members, they call us and say, oh, there is this, but we want you to investigate, or we want you to watch this. And to me, that is a sign of the entire community trying to protect the program. We see how ordinary members are taking up mentorship roles to our students. So I wanted the body to know that our program is loved and jealously protected. And I also know some reasons, because I know some members who have young children in Sunday school, they have confessed to me that they don't want ABF program to have any problem, because they are young ones who will in future benefit from it. So they don't want anything to happen to it. So that's why they do the protection. And then I think the third point I would like the board to go with is to know that Africa is so diverse, like Alista was saying, and that diverse is also reflected in our program. Our program is unique almost in every country, and that causes for us to have to handle almost every country in a unique way. For example, I'll give you an example of DRC, where we have not been able to send direct wires to the schools in DRC. The same way we can do in other countries. In DRC, we are given to form of the local Christian scientists in DRC organized themselves and formed a local organization called the Le Bon Berger in French. In English, it means the Good Shepherd. So when we process an application from DRC, we send money from ABF to an account in LBB. And then the managers of the LBB helps us to withdraw the money and redistribute it to the respective schools of this. So that's how we could only manage to operate in DRC. We couldn't just send money directly to, because the banks don't have all the required documentations we need, all information. And some countries are big, like for example, DRC again, or Nigeria, or Cameroon. So we need multiple ICRs. So the majority of the countries, we just assign one ICR, but some countries are so diverse also, we need different multiple ICRs. And then we rigorously train them on how to detect fraud, on how to approach students with love, and on many other things. So yes, I wanted the body to know that Africa is so diverse, and we handle almost every country uniquely. Thank you.
Thank you. I had a question about what necessitated more than one ICR. So it's a size, it's a language. Obviously, sometimes like Cameroon, you say English and French. And then the difficulty. So do the ICRs, are they the ones who who organize the funding in DRC when they have those the need to pay, and they can't do the wire transfers directly. So are the ICRs are the ones responsible for helping with that, or is that you?
No, the local organization, which is actually also formed by Christian scientists, very trusted Christian individuals, Christian science individuals.
That's the board.
Yes.
Oh, okay, so
they handle that. Yeah, the chairman of the board, whose name is Jean-Pierre. Yes, he does that.
And some schools, sorry, go ahead.
It's kind of a checks and balances. So like the ICR isn't getting the money wired to the ICR, because they're the one who's approving it.
Yeah.
And so it's a separate organization that will distribute the funds. And things are getting better, but Lamech, do you want to explain how they used to distribute the money to the schools?
Yes, and we keep watch to this organization, and they have made a lot of tremendous progress also. They have evolved from originally they used to just withdraw the money in cash and walk with it on the streets and go look for the schools and then pay by cash and then receive a receipt and then bring it to the student and photocopy and send it to ABF. But now they have reached a stage where they can receive money in the central account and then be able to wire or to send it to respective banks of the schools internally within the country. So at least they are at that stage, which we think is more safer and quicker, because originally that was a challenge where we could send money like today, but maybe the chairperson of the LBB is busy or is still doing another round, and the students have to wait for another week. But now it is almost instant when we send money to the account, the central account. So this guy can also do the same within 2 days.
So is there any money sent at all directly to schools? Or is that model gone?
Not in DRC, but all the other.
But all the other
10
okay.
countries they are.
Are there schools in particular that you feel very comfortable with? Because I know they discussed last night that some schools doesn't always feel as comfortable giving the money because they're may say, well, this student has paid this much and this, you had highlighted that. So are there schools that you do work with where we're sort of like, okay, we're good. We can send, we know that they're gonna, have you established those relationships, I guess, with certain schools?
In all the rest of the countries, yes, we do have those, but in the others we are still.
No, I understand that there's, and I was also curious that, I mean, I'm assuming people are doing this not because they're trying to be dishonest in the way that they just want the money. It's doing it because they feel like there's really a need for them personally because they don't have any funds. And I'm just wondering how we, respond to them and what we do in those regards, or is it just something where we say no, or how we deal with those, because it seems like a very challenging issue, but we also want to be compassionate about it, I guess, too. So I was interested in how that comes through.
Yeah, I think I'll let Joe add to what I'm going to say, but we work with the same way we work with each country uniquely. We also try to bring that touch of personalized service to even individual students. Our ICR sit with the student and during the interview and try to figure out what the real need is. And we have students whom we have paid for accommodation. If there is a need for accommodation, there are those students who apply for accommodation and we deny them because we feel or we have established that there is no need for accommodation. And we have students in Rwanda where we have paid for transport, because Rwanda is one country in Africa where they have established a very good transportation system where you can pay for a whole year. So we try to personalize our service to students. We understand their needs.
I didn't understand that. That's brilliant.
So in Africa, it's complicated. It's the first answer. And also the lawyer answer, it depends. But in the United States, we give scholarships for tuition. In Africa, we give scholarships for tuition. Sometimes we'll help pay for housing. Sometimes in Rwanda only, we'll help pay for transportation because we can actually wire the money to the transportation, on the student's behalf. The challenge then with, the different approvals, so the in-country representative, and I as the CEO, I was like, oh, we are in, before we went dormant in the 2 countries, we're in 13 countries. We're not really in 13 countries. Let's take Kenya as an example. In Kenya, we are in Nairobi, and we are in Western Kenya. End of list. We're not really in the rest because there are no Christian Science churches, societies, or practitioners other than those 2 locations. So really are very regional or almost, city specific. And so we have 2 ICRs in Kenya because those are the 2 areas where Christian Scientists are. There are other big cities in Kenya where we have no program because we don't have an ICR. What that in-country representative does is says, two primary things, and Lamech, we'll tag team here, is one is they make sure the school is legitimate. And so just as everyone is, has diversity of spirit gifts, the same spirit, some of our ICRs are very good at going and having great relationships with these schools. And they know the great, Mekarari is a great school. There are other schools in Uganda, maybe not quite of the same reputation, but they're still good schools. And so Jackie, who's our ICR, has does a great job in Uganda, knowing the schools and having those good relationships. And then the second thing is knowing the students or the applicant being a Christian Scientist. And typically there are one or two churches in each area, and they either go to the same church or they know somebody. And so they are able to do an interview. And Lamech is very good at handling the applications from somebody who just found Christian Science and would like to get a scholarship from the Alpha Baker Fund. And it's so gracious. We welcome your application. We look forward to you exploring and understanding the beauty and the science of Christian Science, and we'll welcome your application in a couple of years after you've demonstrated that commitment to Christian Science and to your local branch church. So there are is that an attraction? Possibly, but it's not you go to church for 3 weeks or 3 months and now you are a Christian Scientist and you can apply. So the ICRs can look at that, or somebody who, do you want to tell the Jackie story? Or was it Rose, the one who went for a master's?
Who you denied and
You
then,
denied and then you accepted it. Yeah.
Yeah, Jackie is the ICR in Uganda.
One of our very best ICRs now.
Yes, and yes, she's also my friend. So when she applied to MBA, she didn't do everything right. And I think because she thought maybe I was her friend. And I denied, when I committed a denial, she was in shock. And she called me and said, I can't believe you just denied my application. And I was like, I felt that by compromising our standard, I wasn't helping her, because maybe next time it won't be a BF application, maybe it will be a visa application or a job application. So I wanted to keep the standard high to help her. And I didn't realize I was actually passing on what she's doing now, because now I had her one day, she was giving a testimony on why she's very strict. She's very, strict, because she learned those kind of qualities from me. And yes, but I also wanted to mention that we have a very strong relationship with the schools which we work with, and the schools do understand our interest. We have cases where schools have called us or contacted us and reported it, unutilized the funds, like when a student maybe for some reason, maybe because of the forex exchange, there was some money which remained in the account. Some students would love to go and take that money and claim that money, but the schools won't give it to them. They always contact us and say, hey, look here, there is some money here which is remaining. What do we do with it? And usually we ask the schools to send it back to MBA, or if there is another student going to that school, we can ask the school to apply it.
So in Jackie's case, so she was denied, and mom said, you haven't been coming to, what I remember was, you haven't been coming to church, you haven't been practicing your Christian Science. So if you want to get a scholarship, you'll need to do that, which Jackie then did. And of course, got re-engaged with the church, is very active as a Christian Scientist, and now is one of our ICRs and one of our very best ICRs. And so she was won back over because Lamech stood with principle. And so it's, the program is very strong in some cases. And there are cases in the past where Lamech has discovered ICRs who maybe weren't being honest and ethical, and then they were removed. But that was a case where ICRs might, say yes to their friends who maybe weren't practicing Christian Scientists. And so it's an ongoing thing, because Lamech is in Uganda, and I think we mentioned we're in 11 different countries, and it's spread out over a vast geographical area. So we are only as good as our on the ground ICRs, and that's, as he said yesterday with Burundi. If we had a strong ICR in Burundi, we could open that program again. But until then, we're just gonna be dormant. And I've actually got, some people contacting me saying, I'd be more than happy to be the ICR because my child needs an ABF scholarship.
Yeah.
They're like, no, that's not. So, we need to find somebody that Lamech trusts and that we know we can have that strong program. And so we are emerging gently. We're, maintaining the programs that we have. And then, the point number 2 on the slide was, we're regularly reviewing, evaluating, are we in the right countries? Do we have the staff? Do we have the people we can trust to allow us to administer this program? It's life-changing. And I love the fact, I learned this when I was there in 2023, and it's so important to share with the board. The local branch churches and their members want to courageously protect our program because they see its impact and its value, and they want it to be around in perpetuity. And so we have a lot of metaphysical and just practical support in these branch churches as well.
Can you remind me, when we talk about the US and, obviously we're not funding the entire cost of an education for an individual, but, maybe we can determine what the percent of that overall cost for a 4-year program is with our rates. I don't know what the average cost of them in the US is. And then I'd like to do the same parallel to understand how does that look at percentage-wise in our Africa program?
In Africa, it's close to 100%. 100%. Yeah, and here in the average tuition ballpark is 30,000 a year,
Okay.
and we're giving 5 or 5,500, right? So about 1/6.
Yeah.
And so it's not nothing, and it's interesting. At some point in time, the history of ABF may be written. We'll see, but we started out as a gap funder. Back, we look at the old ledgers, and Jeff showed me that $100 loan, $200 loan. I mean, the big loans were $500. Yeah, but you get $100 loan so you could finish your college education in the 1960s. I don't know what you can get on. I mean, you probably can't even buy a textbook for $100 on the college campus
Pay
nowadays.
your registration fee.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's that.
Yeah, so if we've gone from being a gap loan organization to still funding, now funding on average 1/6 of a US education. That's big. And of course, everyone would like us, I think we'd all like to be able to help those students even more, especially the ones who have the greatest need. And we're working on it.
Yes, but I just wanted to know whether Craig know what the 100% is equivalent to in terms of Yes, because I wanted to highlight that the 100% of the scholarship in Africa is actually 1,200.
Yeah.
That's what Lisa was just saying.
Yes.
So I missed your presentation last night. She was giving me the.
And we have a recorded between Lydia.
That's what I was wondering is, I saw with the presentation, generally $1,000 average. So that doesn't just include school, but sometimes it may include funding for housing and funding for travel, and
They can't.
that's very impressive.
So one thing I was thinking about, and I thought about this for the last 5 years or so. And I just looked at my computer. So Africa is bigger than anybody imagined. Like, I've only been to the southern tip, right, in South Africa. I've never actually gone anywhere north of there. For various political reasons when I was a kid, it would have been welcome. But the area, the expanse that Lamech oversees is about 3/4 the size of Russia. Right, of Russia is the biggest country on the planet, right? 3/4 of that is from Kenya to the western part before the bulge, and it is enormous. So, do you feel like you have the right support? Are you able to do what you need to do there? If you had a wish list of things that you need in terms of like resources or people, like because I have no way of thinking about that. I've thought about that incompletely for the last 5 or 6 years, but I have no way of knowing from on the ground, like what is it that you need, or are you able to, do you have the adequate support to get things done effectively the way things are?
Yes, I feel I have the right support, and I don't complain. Yes, I always feel supported any time I need some support, especially from the head office. For example, in terms I'll give you an example. If there was a rumor or a whistleblower in Zambia, what I usually do is to ask for support from the head office and travel there. And there is no day I will delay to do that. So I feel that is enough support for me. And also, but the good support I get it from the local Christian Scientists. I feel more supported. And I feel, yes, the love and the support and the protection you get from the local Christian Scientists is enormous. Just keeps you going, wanting to do more. Yeah, so there is no way I think I feel any lack. I feel I'm well supported.
Okay. And you'd let Joe know if you.
Oh, he does.
Good.
In a good way, in a very good way.
And I think it's important that Lamech hasn't said this, that he travels to these different countries, like if we have a new ICR to train that. And so he does have touch points, and we're very grateful that he's willing to travel all these different countries and distances, because it's a lot. But it really helps to establish the program in a very substantial foundational way.
And I wanted to share some of the ways sometimes we do these investigations. Like there are some cases where we have received students applying to ABF with inflated invoices. In cases like that, usually we get students on ground who help us to become undercover students, to go and apply for the same exact course in the same university without necessarily mentioning the word ABF anywhere. And then we receive the authentic invoices, and then we compare, and then we're able to make judgment. And
I remember Libby having to send somebody to Harvard
That's right.
undercover to get a real bill, and then we compared it. I mean, this is, again, Africa is very, it's unique, and each country is unique. And yet, what I heard about our undercover student agents, I didn't know we even had that. So,
and usually how I do it, I rarely dress like this in Africa. I dress very casual in Africa. And when I travel, I don't sleep in 5-star hotels. I let the students or church members book for me where to stay, because I know by doing that, they will book for me in a place which is accessible to them. And when I'm there, we travel on border borders. Border borders are motorcycles, and I eat from where they eat. And in that process, sometimes they pass me in places where there are no roads, like roads for cars. So we just walk or use motorcycles. But in that process, they give you a lot of information, which you wouldn't have gotten when you are maybe sleeping somewhere or when you're dressed like this. So yes, I love the way we work in Africa, because it makes everything very easy for me to,
But you still have to travel primarily to get to the country by plane of some sort, right?
yes,
We're
but
not,
I
you're not
let
going
them
bus around.
pick me from the airport.
Yeah.
Please.
A plane of some sort. What other sorts do you have?
Well, instead of a bus. Or a plane that doesn't get on the air, but just kind of drives. Long tarmac.
But it's towed. Well,
Flames without wings that goes down the road.
so from Boma, our ICR rode a 12 or 14-hour bus ride.
Yes.
So, the ICR in Boma, which is DRC,
Okay.
came to when I was visiting. Lamech said that I would be there. So he took I think it was like 14-hour bus ride. And it was not that long. It's because the roads are that, dirt roads, and they're potholes, and they probably average 20 miles an hour to get there. And, he was there for maybe one day, and then had to go back on that same bus. And Lamech has done bus rides like that, Craig, but we try not to have him be.
Yeah, the context for that is so in Boma is a place where the Belgians helped set that up right in the book The Heart of Darkness, Conrad. So to give you a sense of how when people say there are challenges in parts of Africa that are acute, it's the legacy of the brutality and just of the just there's a lot of negativity. So the fact that Al Baker Fund can even have a presence there is a testament to a lot of goodwill that's being displayed by people on the ground in leading the effort. And obviously there's a part of the world that really do need it. I mean, they need like the hope and promise of what the Christ gives, and so I'm just very grateful.
Yeah, I think it's actually Burma is one of our toughest region. Because I remember the first time I went there to investigate whether we can expand our program there. I flew to Kinshasa, the capital, and I had to hire a taxi to take me there. And we drove the whole day from 6 until it was dark. And I remember promising myself, I'm not going to sleep because the driver, I know some French, but the driver was speaking French, which is mixed with the Lingala, the local language. So I couldn't even pick anything out. I'm like, I'm not going to sleep at all. But sleep is sleep. So I ended up sleeping on the way. And we couldn't reach Burma until the following morning because then the road was really very bad. And but of course, when you reach the other side, you are welcomed with Christian scientists, and everything is different. And so when you think about the people you have met on the other side and what they are doing, you don't want to abandon them. So it encourages you to keep going and helping, supporting them, and then you see the progress they are making. I think that is, I know I've achieved a lot probably in FBF, but the biggest joy I've gotten from working with FBF is being able to experience the tremendous growth from, witnessing the transformation of our students. For example, I'll give you one example in Kenya where I know someone personally who didn't have transport when he first came to FDF meeting, because we tried to give out some transport refund for people to go back. And then when I was driving back to the hotel, I saw him walking and I stopped. And I said, oh, why are you walking? Because we gave you transport. I said, oh, Lamech, I can't use this money because at home, I didn't leave home. I didn't leave food. We didn't have dinner, and this money you have given us is going to be used for lunch. So that's why I'm working. But now this gentleman, the same gentleman, now he's a lecturer in one of the universities in Nairobi. So for me, witnessing that kind of transformation that gives me joy, which I can't, I think, get anywhere else. So, yeah.
Well, are there any other questions for Lamech? So Lamech can be in town now for a while. Will you be in town working with the staff for the next couple of weeks, and then also traveling down to the Willows and then to Houston, meet with donors and meet with his various constituents, and then he'll end up his US tour by performing at the Mother Church, the annual meeting. He'll be performing. I'm just joking.
He's the accomplished organist.
Yeah. But so you, this is the start of your trip, right, Lamech? This is the start of it, and so you have about another month or through June.
Yeah, 5 weeks.
5 weeks. Yeah. So it's so if you have any other questions bubble up and you think about, oh, I saw this on the news or whatever, again, like, be in touch with Joe and who will be in touch with Lamech because they'll be tied at the hip the next 5 weeks.